Okay, welcome to the second afternoon session. For those who logging in first time, my name is Sunghyun Kim. I'm the Dean of College of Economics at 성균관 University, and I'll be presiding the second afternoon session today. The title of the session is Cooperative Governance and Public Health. And we have two distinguished speakers, Dr. An Ji-hyun and Dr. Jo Joo-hee, and one discussant, Dr. Shim Won-mok. The first presenter is Dr. An Ji-hyun. She's the professor of psychiatry at the Samsung Medical Center, and she will talk about benefits of cooperation, social and emotional well-being. And each presentation is for about 30 minutes, and then the discussion will be about 15 minutes total. Thank you. Let's welcome Dr. An with big applause.
Thank you for having me today. It's been very nice to listen to all these amazing sessions about the cooperations, and I'm really honored to be the part of it. I'm in this invitation to speak about the benefits of a cooperation, which might affect social and emotional well-being. When I first got this topic, I was like, I'm gonna talk about it because the word cooperation itself has a variety of meanings. And we all know cooperation is good and important to live with others, but how are we going to measure the effect of cooperations? Since this is very abstract concept and there are no direct way to measure it. As a psychiatrist, I'm going to present the meaning of cooperation on a little more about the scientific basis and the connections with mental health in this era of global pandemic. So as we all know, the definition of cooperation is the process whereby two or more individuals work together toward the attainment of a mutual goal or complementary goal, or any behavior that is potentially costly to an individual but benefits at least one other individual. Then what's human cooperation and how is different from other non-human species? Many studies about human development have shown humans are able to represent shared goals in a way that facilitates cooperation. Like in this picture, non-human primates may work together to obtain the fruits they like, but don't show the commitment to shared goal. But humans are more likely to work together for the common goals and share the spoils. Then why the human cooperation different from other non-human species? Here are some unique aspects about human cooperation. There's self-regulation, which is adjusting individuals' behaviors according to common goals, expectations, and standards. Humans also have ability to mentalize, which is the capacity to represent mental states of oneself and other, and thereby better predict and regulate future behaviors. As a result, a shared sense of identity arises, which help individuals work together for the mutual goal in one society. But non-human species don't have such kind of characteristics. It's very interesting that how human reaches to the cooperative behaviors is mostly carried out by the extensive network of specific brain area, the prefrontal cortex. Of course, there are some other brain regions that can be linked to it, but now I'm going to focus on the prefrontal cortex. This brain area is one of the slowest parts of the brain to develop and reaches full maturity in mid-20s. This prefrontal cortex works for executive functions such as decision making, planning ahead, self-monitoring, and working memory. And it's the most involved cortical area in mentalization. Also, there has been several studies that oxytocin might facilitate cooperative function in human species. This hormone is naturally synthesized in the hypothalamus and released into the bloodstream by the pituitary gland, and play a role in parenting instinct and childbirth process. Recently, a study says intranasal delivery of oxytocin might increase social and cooperative behaviors in people with autism spectrum disorder, where social interactions are hardly occurred. Also, low oxytocin levels are associated with depression. And there's some evidences that the stress hormone cortisol, which is produced from activation of the HPA axis in response to stressors, might be associated to human cooperative behaviors. The results are inconsistent though. In psychiatric studies, this hormone is known to be closely associated with stress, uncooperative behaviors, depression, or anxiety. As I introduced so far, cooperative behavior seems to be determined by specific biological pathways, especially the brain network. But it is very hard to study the effect of cooperation itself, since we assume the cooperativeness is the default of human behavior. So why not look at the problems that arise when there is no cooperative behavior? In the clinical scene, uncooperativeness can be the first sign of neuropsychiatric disorders such as major depressive disorder, Alzheimer's disease, or schizophrenia. It seems that psychiatric patients are hardly sustaining reciprocal cooperation with others, having difficulties in mentalization, so that they are having hard time in cooperative process. For example, severely depressed people are not willing to start cooperative work, avoiding social relationships, taking other people's favor in negative way. Aggression, violence, or irritable behavior can be the severe form of uncooperativeness. This uncooperative behavior is not limited to a single diagnosis, but is seen as a common symptom of many general mental illness. Surprisingly, when we look through the brains of people with mental illness, we can see the brain regions associated with cooperative processes are impaired, including the prefrontal area. These impairments are especially predominant in people with depression, Alzheimer's, and schizophrenia. Those patients frequently show such an uncooperative behavior and decreased social interactions. Look at the right panel. This is very interesting fMRI study that social brain network correlates with real life social network in individuals with schizophrenia and social anhedonia. Means that decreased brain network are literally related to decreased size of social network. So do the brain alone determine human behavior? This is difficult to explain because human behavior is also influenced by environmental and genetic factors. For example, losing a job can easily lead to depression even for healthy people. But if the person has genetic or biological vulnerability to depression, the probability will go up even more. So all biological, environmental, and genetic factors determine human behavior under complex interactions. And there has been the global pandemic, which brought the common environmental stress to people around the world. People have shown strong emotional reactions, such as strong fear of infection and death, negative feeling and anxiety and panic. And the social distancing caused many social issues, including social inequality, political polarization, etc. Consequently, phenomena such as individualism, discrimination, uncooperativeness have arisen. In such a life-threatening situation, the mentalization and self-regulation are hard to maintain. Cooperative behaviors are hardly occurred. As the results, people are getting isolated and started to feel lonely more than ever. Especially people with mental disorders are more vulnerable to loneliness and social disconnectedness and showing more uncooperative behaviors. Perhaps we can apply the concepts of social isolation and loneliness as a mirror of uncooperative situations of this era. Social isolation is an objective lack of social interactions, such as number of friends you meet frequently, living alone or living with someone, married or not. On the other hand, loneliness is a subjective feeling of social disconnectedness. It's occurred because there is a discrepancy between one's desired and actual social connection. For example, I can feel lonely even though I have many friends. Social isolation and loneliness were prevalent across worldwide even before pandemic, but it has only worsened with the restriction imposed to contain virus spread. And several studies have found that social isolation and loneliness increase the major health risk. Social isolation was associated with premature deaths, increased risk of dementia, heart disease, and stroke. Mostly elderly, younger, minority people are known to be at higher risk, but anyone can experience loneliness and isolation. Social isolation and loneliness also have negative effects on psychosocial well-being during pandemic. Social isolation is associated with poor life satisfaction, work-related stress, lower trust of institution, and higher use of substances. Loneliness was also associated with higher level of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Hundreds of studies have done with these issues, but results vary due to the methodological issues. Also, so far, there has been no nationwide study about Korean on their social isolation, loneliness, and mental health during pandemic. So here I brought a very latest research about the prevalence of social isolation, loneliness, and their association with mental health. It's called the Korean Epidemiological Catchment Area Study. This is nationwide study conducted every 5 years by the legislative body of Korea since 2001. In this round of study, Korean population aged between 18 to 79 were selected from December 2019 to December 2021 using multi-stage stratified community clustering. A weight value was applied according to the population distribution in each area so that the sample could represent the entire Korean population. Socio-demographic characteristics such as gender, age, marriage status, educational level were collected. Also, the psychiatric disorders were diagnosed with the structured interview called CD, which is widely used in psychiatric research worldwide. And also the suicidality, including experience of suicide ideation, plan, and attempts were assessed. The loneliness and social isolation status were measured as follows. For social isolation, we measured two dimensions consist of social network and sport. For loneliness, we used the question about the subjective feeling of loneliness and isolation. Here's the results. Among 5,011 Korean, about 12% were classified socially isolated group and 2.9% were classified as lonely group. Men were more likely to be isolated than women, while women reported more loneliness than men. Experience of suicidal ideation, plan attempts were all higher in both social isolation and lonely group than general. Especially social isolation was about 4 times higher. Even suicidal attempts were about 10 times higher in lonely group than not lonely group. Major psychiatric disorders, including nicotine, alcohol use disorder, and depressive disorder, were highly prevalent in both socially isolated and lonely group, but the extent was much greater in the loneliness group. Also, when we calculated the odds of suicidality according to the group, the suicidal risk were significantly increased in loneliness and poor social network group. And loneliness group showed greater association of both single and multiple suicidal attempts. This might be the first nationwide study to investigate the prevalence of isolation, loneliness during pandemic era, and their association with mental health in Korea. We found that both social isolation and loneliness during pandemic significantly increased major psychiatric disorders and suicidality. Especially loneliness, the subjective feeling of not getting connected, might play more important role in vulnerability to mental illness than objective isolations. So encouraging the sense of us would be the key to decrease loneliness and related mental health problem. I've talked about various things so far. I would like to conclude my presentation with this slide. First, humans have cooperative brain. The cooperativeness would be the defaults of human behavior. If the cooperative brain doesn't work, various psychosocial problems arise. Several psychiatric symptoms are related to uncooperativeness and affected by environmental factors. Viral pandemic also have brought the loneliness pandemic. This environmental stress makes people more self-centered, isolated, and not willing to cooperate. As a result, social isolation and loneliness occur and worsen mental health and cooperativeness. So, what could be our solution? I think shared sense of identity is important to encourage cooperativeness. The path to psychosocial well-being. To sustain shared sense of identity, we should maintain social connections and most importantly, watch others' emotions and share the feeling of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned about social isolation and loneliness are two different things. Do they always go together? I mean, is there any case that you're socially isolated but do not feel lonely, or vice versa?
Recently, we think the two groups are so distinct because the loneliness is more focused on the emotional things, and the social isolation is measured by just the household size or how many people you have, just the objective things. So the recent study we have done, during last 2 years, there were group that they feel lonely, but they are not isolated. There's also the group, they are isolated, but not feel lonely. And some people have two aspects together, but some people are not. So we think two groups are so distinct.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel lonely even if I have a lot of friends. So maybe we can talk later in your office. Thank you very much. We'll move right next to the next presentation. Next presenter is Professor Cho Joo-hee at the Department of Clinical Research Design and Evaluation at Samsung Advanced Institute for Health Sciences and Technology. She is also the director of Center for Clinical Epidemiology. And let's please welcome Professor Jo.
Can you hear me now? I know I'm the last speaker of the symposium, and it's been an honor for me and to be pleasure here. So I have to excuse myself for a little bit noisy voice today because I just landed from Praha yesterday, about 10 hours ago, and fortunately, I got cold, so I have a great excuse not presenting well today. So I know we've been talking a lot about cooperation and maybe like harmonization today. And as a last speaker, I'm proud to introduce about our education, one of our graduate school education program, which was actually made due to the many people's cooperation and harmonization effort. So before I go further, so before I introduce myself, I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID. So as Dr. An just mentioned. So if you can imagine, COVID has been changing many things in our society. It changed the way we work. It changed, hold a second. It changed the way we play, and it changed way we like educating our people. So I'm just explaining to you how COVID changed our life, because I wanted to tell you what I'm doing. I'm a clinical epidemiologist and psycho-oncologist, and I'm a teacher. So I'm a university professor who teach clinical method, research method, especially for cancer and supportive care quality of life. That means clinical epidemiology is something like we study about the disease like COVID and population and cause and effect. So as you heard every day on the news about how many people were infected, how many people were die, who are infected, who are high risk, who should be vaccinated, and what's going on in terms of treatment, that's what not everything I do, but that's part of what I'm doing. So if you're thinking over COVID it really changed our lifestyle and everything, but at the same time, COVID really makes our medicine progress in short term. So this is the one of like the graph shows you how COVID vaccine was really breaking the record to the first in human trial. So as you see, this is actually Zika. So when we found the Zika virus like 1945, it takes almost 50 years to develop the vaccine. It's not only about the like science, it's more maybe urgent need and cooperation. But if you're thinking about COVID vaccination, the worldwide scientists, everyone get together, even regardless of borders, they actually found out the way we vaccine people in 3 months. This is like amazing, like I would say the record achievement in medicine. But this was possible because everyone worked together. Before that, maybe it was no urgent, or before that, it was no, we didn't really specify why we wanted to do this. So even for the therapeutics as well. So we will back to the therapeutics when I am talking about collaboration, but therapeutics also, we work together, we are moving it. So this is what we are doing. So clinical research. So clinical research is a component of medical and health research. We intended to produce knowledge and understanding human disease, why this is happening, how we can preventing it, how we treat the illness, and how we promote the health. Not only for COVID, it's from maybe cancer, maybe psychiatric disease or depression and everything. So this is not, I'm not saying I'm studying everything, but we are teaching the method. So when you do the clinical study, you need a subject, people who are participating in study. You need a study plan, which we call it a study protocol. But you also need a person, like a study team, who are conducting the study. So which we called is a research team. So back to the 1700, in very, very, very old time, when you conduct a clinical research, you can actually conduct by your own. So this is the one of all these documents about clinical trial. So James Lin, who is a physician, he actually going through the many like sailors, and he found out sailors experience some scurvy. Scurvy is a disease you experiencing with the vitamin deficiency. So now everyone know you take lemon or orange or you like a fresh fruit, it helped. But at that time, they didn't know. So James Lin, Dr. Lin, try his own experimental. He called 12 sailors and he decided to assign 6 different assignment to the 12 people. It's like 2 people a quarter of cider daily, and 2 people for 25 drops of xylitol, and maybe 6 spoonful of vinegar, and then half pint of seawater, and 2 oranges and 2 lemon. And last 2 people got a spice paste plus drink of barley water. So then he found out the sailor who got 2 oranges and lemon were cured. So he didn't know exactly what causes it, but he found out how to treat it. This was the clinical trial in 1700. So he was able to do it with the small numbers. He was able to do it with our own idea. But nowadays, we will going back to this COVID trial. So TICO trial and Active 3, there are many, many, many trials in terms of COVID, but this is one of like a well-known and ongoing, well-going trial. So I bring the affiliation of all the investigator. Even this is actually organized as a big group, like over 3,000 people were involved in this trial. So what that means is we really need a collaboration. We actually need many, many different people. So clinical trial and clinical research not only can be done only clinicians or nurses. We need a pharmacist, and we need a clinical epidemiologist and biostatistician and clinical research organizer, people from industry, policymaker, government, many, many different people. Which means actually we call it clinical research is the art of science. Actually, it's the art of a collaboration, because we need experts from whole different area, but we need to speak one language, like a language standardized to conduct a clinical study. So which we call it a study protocol. Then, however, worldwide, we are shortage of clinical researchers. So clinical researchers are really critical for advancing clinical practices. So you have many different expertise and experts, but you need to really bring them together and work them together. You need some people who are guiding them and who is training them in terms of their protocol and study. So clinical researchers are really essential for investigating potential challenges in standard of care and evidence-based medicine. But especially in Korea, we are really lacking it because we don't really have a good training program. So compared to the US or UK or Canada, there has been many like good graduate school program for clinical researchers, but until we really open the course, there's really no courses. And for the clinicians or nurses, they always run out of the time. There is actually limited opportunity for funding junior faculty or clinicians. So then it was really dull moment for me. So I back to Korea from Johns Hopkins 2008. And I've been actually teaching my actually primary appointment for the cancer education. But at the time, there was really nobody who can teach clinical research method and Samsung Medical Center. Then I was asked them by leadership, why don't you also teach the clinical research method, which is clinical epidemiology? Then I found out, oh, maybe this is what I need to do in Korea. So this is a picture of a clear sky, which I took about maybe 30 hours ago. It's a Czech Prague, as you can tell. So this was the moment I see like maybe 15 years ago, oh, we should do training the people for clinical research in Korea. So it's really shortage. So I talked to the dean of SAHIS at the time. Then I was telling him, so we are really lacking good clinical researchers. So I wanted to open the graduate school program. So because so many people are eager to take it, but no graduate school offer it. So SAIST is just for your information. SAIST is the actually within the vision of implementing the excellence of health science and technology research by educating, conversion, and creative and confident professional. So and interacting in interdisciplinary way, including hospitals as well as industry. So it actually includes all the theme. I don't really not expert of economics, but I sort of learn about how semiconducting economics work together. So things are really correlated. So SAIST is an institution, really we have a core value for communication, cooperation, creativeness and challenge and social contribution and convergence and health science research. So I clearly remember when I visited the Harvard School of Public Health and Harvard Health Science and Technology Graduate School, which we modeled when we opened the SAHIST. So then we've been actually beginning with Department of Health Science Technology, then Department of Digital Health joined, and for our department, who teaches clinical research method, Department of Clinical Research Design and Evaluation, we begin with a special program based on the contract. So like Johnson & Johnson or Hanmi and several pharmaceutical company actually approached to us and why don't you open the program for our employees? Then we begin it and we are really fortunate to have a regular graduate school program just right after COVID. We got the first cohort year 2020. So, but it was I would say, I'm very proud to tell you this is the first graduate school program in Korea, even I would say in Asia, which is specialized aimed to training clinical research experts. And this is the first and only graduate school program provide degree in clinical epidemiology in Korea. So although our department name is Clinical Research Design and Evaluation, but that's actually easy way to tell what is clinical epidemiology. So we actually provide degrees and masters in clinical epidemiology and doctors in clinical epidemiology. So when we begin this program, I cannot really begin from the scratch. So I look for the recipe. So how can we make the successful graduate school program? So I was looking for recipe for success. And the first thing I do is I try to learn from front runners. like the maybe so I was visiting like for my parenting school, like I talked to my professor in Johns Hopkins, I talked to professors at Harvard and National Institute of National Institute of Medicine Health in US, and McMaster University, which is actually the first worldwide clinical epidemiology degree program worldwide. And also we were visiting University of Oxford and University of Cambridge and Amsterdam, Charité at the Germany. So try to figure out what they would recommend as a first learner, what they would want us to do when what they see in the potential. Because nowadays everyone is talking about, oh, there is no hope for the college, but it's another way. Because we live longer, we may need more specialty. So we need more continuing education. So I think I would say personally, there is a lot of potential for us to expanding our graduate school, expanding our graduate program. Anyway, so all the leading groups in terms of clinical research method, they were suggesting three things. Actually, I was very surprised because everyone was suggesting the same thing. So first thing was cultural collegiality. So this is actual pronunciation. It's a little bit hard. So I prepared the slide for the collegiality. So this is actually one of our theme of the conference. The collegiality is the essence of high-level collaboration. So it's based on your trustee and companion and cooperation. So when I asked like most of the school of dean or president of university, how they select the faculty at the leading school, and they said they are actually selecting team and the faculty or colleague based on the collegiality, not the smart. So I was asking, why not impact factor or why not their product? And they said everyone is smart who is applying for Harvard, who is applying for Johns Hopkins faculty position. They're all smart, but we want the people who can work together. We want the people who can actually work together with the other people. So that's the culture of collegiality. Then you can actually make the sustainable program and good graduate school program, because there's always dirty work. There is always something you don't want to work. So because people are sometimes so selfish and they always says, oh, I don't have time. I just want to do my research. But we want somebody who can maybe share their time, share their knowledge, and share their things. So that's what they recommend for us, the first thing. And second is global leadership. If we really want to be number one in global wise, we really need to have something inside of us, which is institutional research building. As a graduate school who are really close to Samsung Medical Center, I think we are really fortunate to have like a partnership and work together. Then we have an opportunity to make comprehensive and high throughput data. That's the one of the uniqueness of our program. Then third one is really emphasis on training. So graduate school and university, I think the number one philosophy is we are the teachers. So we exist because students exist. We are no longer meaningful if there is nobody who wanted to learn from us. So they really strongly recommend us recruiting more faculty who can teach well and develop the signature program for both part-time and full-time students. So training people and then having a good program actually help you to recruit more students. But at the same time, you really need to figure out how you can develop significant program for your students. Then I also try to listen to students from faculty who is interested in our department, because it's a brand new and we really need to recruit people. So we try to listen and talk to applicants, potential applicants, and students. So I actually so far I've been able to actually meet every student once a year, and at least interviewing them, talk to them at 30 or like sometimes 1 hour individually. So try to figure out what are their unmet need, what would their expectation to come to the school, so what they wanted to learn. And also, even it's a small number of faculty, I try to talk to faculty and a semi-annual meeting on training program and curriculums. Everyone is busy at the hospital. But we wanted to make sure what is their concern, how I can help them, how we can help the students. And also, we also talk to the potential interest group, like companies and hospital leadership and those people. So how we can, what are we are missing? So how we can really improve our program. So their expectation on SIST is, I mean, everyone wants a good and structured training program designated for clinical research. People says there are many graduate schools, but there's no graduate school specifically for the clinical research method. And they want in-depth and focused training on clinical epidemiology, like how can you predict things? What are the causal inference? How can we conduct a clinical trial? But at the same time, most of part-time students, they were looking for something they can use at the workplace. So most of graduate school students who are coming to our graduate school, they're at least 10 or 20 year experience in the industry. So they are coming not to learn the basic ABC. They are coming to here for advanced knowledge, more practical things. So we try to also we wanted to open the door for students coming and then meeting the expert in different area. So there are not that many opportunity people who can talk to the clinicians and clinical researchers outside. So they really want us to be a school where they can meet with experts in different area and find the partners for the potential collaboration. So within these lessons from front learners and students and faculty, we are able to make the clinical research design evaluation our graduate school program at SAHIST. So we try to provide trainees, like students, an opportunity to translate their idea, what they have there in mind, into this research question on the spectrum. The idea could be basic. The idea could be maybe preclinical or clinical or population. But whatever they have in their mind, we wanted to help them. We wanted to teach them the way they solve the problem. So our curriculums are consist like this. So we developed as a core, so like a basic skill, like epidemiology or biostatistics, and also applied. So they have their own interest. Maybe some people want to be clinical trial expert, someone wanted to be genetic epidemiologist, and someone wanted to be maybe eye epidemiologist or pediatric. So we don't have a whole like encyclopedia sections like Johns Hopkins or Harvard, but we really try to expanding it over time. Then I think one of our signature is we really wanted to training. Our graduate school program is like designed to training activities include individual development plan. So as I say, I interview each students every year, but even before with applicants. So then we guiding them what curriculum would be most fit for them, because people could have different need. If you don't know anything about human, we even have bankers. So even if you don't know anything about human being or anatomy, so we recommend them, you should take all the core courses. But if you are clinicians and nurses who know well about the human being, we might recommend them for special courses for clinical trial or special courses for advanced methodology. So we organize is really individual development planning, but we wanted to make sure they understand the core method of clinical research. So then when I was actually asked to talk about our program, I was naming, says our program might be without borders. So our program doesn't have 3 borders. So first, we don't have any academic major borders. So, if you're thinking about the COVID situation, so even for the COVID or any clinical research question, most of the research questions require answer from multidisciplinary approach. So let's say, how can we prevent COVID? Like wearing mask doesn't solve the whole thing, or staying home doesn't solve the whole thing. Then if you just staying home, how can you solve the loneliness? How can you help the maybe single disabled people? So it's really required, most of the things require the multidisciplinary approach from maybe basic science, digital therapeutics and everything. So we believe our training need to be people more problem-based, not academic boundaries. So we don't want to teach them only maybe epidemiology or biostatistics. We wanted to teach them research method that can really across the borders. So for teaching and providing those curriculums, we wanted to make sure we have a faculty from different backgrounds. So we have clinicians who can actually share their clinical knowledge and their research questions. We all have epidemiologists who can teach them how to design the study. We have a biostatistician. We can help them how to analyze it. We also have an informatician and behavioral scientist and digital health expert who actually teach them how to use digital therapeutics. And because we were emphasizing this no academic borders because we have students from different backgrounds. So whenever I know we just finished the new interview for the news coming students, and when I interview students, I was surprised. So we have a student from banker and dentist, maybe doctors, nurses, understandable, but we have people from government and people from pharmacists, and even we have a people like a professor from School of Engineering. And I was actually asking, why are you trying to get this degree? And so people from different backgrounds, they have different reason, they have different interest, but they have a common interest. They wanted to answer some health issues. So that's the reason why we try to provide border academic major without borders. Second thing is we try to really remove geographic borders. I know this is actually thanks to the COVID, but even before COVID, I think actually it was sort of what I naturally come because I couldn't really teach everything. I don't know everything. And also I needed people who can share their knowledge, and things are changing really fast. So we try to invite global experts in clinical research, and we wanted to collaboration and teaching activity. I would say I got more help from outside than I helped them. So we were really fortunate to inviting Dr. Sanjay Lampal and Eliseo Wayar and Dr. Zhao as adjunct faculty of our department. They were really helping us to developing the curriculums, and also they teaching the students. So our students not only learn the advanced knowledge, but they can also experience what is the global level of research method. So besides them, maybe because we are really collaborating many people across the world, and then they were coming to our courses and providing seminars and workshops. So we really fortunately. The third thing is we try to do things with innovation without borders. I would say we don't really put the limit. So sometimes it's really hard, as you can tell. But we try to develop the curriculums, promote active discussion and participation, which is really hard in Korea. And even it's harder through the Zoom. So, but we want to make sure maybe flexibility, online education, and effective courses might be more fascinating to the part-time students. And I think maybe at the end, we are not only targeting students in Korea, but we are targeting students in Asia or students worldwide. So we try to open the channel with the students and faculty for 24/7 because this is really the time we need to make innovation. So then still we have challenges. So we have a fundamental aspects are different. And as I said, clinical research is hard. And also our research methods are really rapidly changing. And we don't have really enough faculty and resources. So, but I think thanks to many people's help, we are able to do this. And I believe we could make this impossible to as a possible. And I wish maybe 5 years from now, I can present how we became the #1 global clinical research training, maybe at least in Asia. So thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Cho. I looked it up, the definition of collegiality. It's a friendly relationship between people who work together or do the same job. That's actually what we need. When we hire people at the College of Economics, I try to find out whether this is the person that I can have as a colleague for the remaining years. And I can actually take some of your presentations for my own college.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Now we are done with 2 presentations, and we have discussant. We have only one discussant, Professor Shim Won-mok, and she will talk about both presentations. And she's the professor at Department of Biomedical Engineering. I think she's background is in psychology. She had PhD in psychology from Harvard and worked as postdoctoral positions at Harvard and MIT and taught at Dartmouth College before. And Professor Shim, you have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm Won-mok Shim Won-mok, at the Department of Biomedical Engineering. And it's my great pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to discuss this topic with these 2 prominent experts in the field. So there are a few points that I'd like to ask 2 professors for their thoughts. The first one is for Professor An. As I was introduced by the chair of this session, my background is cognitive science and psychology. So from the perspective of a psychologist, I think we can say as social animals, we seek a certain level of social stimulation. So our social brain may be hungry for social interactions when we are isolated, just as our body is hungry for food when we starve. So when we do not get a healthy dose of positive social inputs here through a cooperative kind, we and our brains can suffer. But we also know that social interactions can be a source of great stress. Right? So when many people suffer from social relations as much as they suffer from lack of social interactions, such as isolation. And also it takes efforts to learn how to trust or cooperate with and reconcile conflicts with others. So some parts of this social function, as we saw from the presentation by Dr. Tomasello in the morning session, are in place from very early on in our life, but we still need to hone this skill throughout our lifetime. So then one more thing that I want to bring up. So now we are in a situation where we can meet people and make friends online instead of directly interacting with them offline, which is probably very different from what our ancestors have to deal with at their time. So today, indeed, a lot of people are actually participating in this event online. So this online world has a great benefit, certainly has enabled social interactions that were not possible before. But at the same time, it has reduced the opportunity to learn basic social skills that's required for cooperative social interactions, I think. So then our dependence on these online interactions has been increasing since the COVID-19 pandemic and social distancing, the factors already mentioned by Professor An. So given these circumstances, we may need a different kind of strategy to encourage social cooperation in our society. So my question is, I'm wondering about your thoughts on how we can promote healthy cooperative social interactions among us for our mental health while avoiding negative aspects of stressful social life, and especially given that we spend a lot of time in the online world. So, and in particular, how we can make it as a societal effort. So that's my question for Professor An.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sim. You brought very important point of the social interactions in this era. But I agree with you that we need social interactions, but not too many social interactions are very stressful. So people choose to live alone, or they just to live as the attitude of solitude. This is very different from social isolation and loneliness. They voluntarily choose to live alone and not caring with others. And then we think that their way of living is not good for mental health. We don't know about it. We cannot judge them. And if we use the digital devices for the interaction with others, and 사실 그 말씀해주신 문제에 대해서는 굉장히 좀 동의를 하는 바고요. 어떤 그런 그 사회적으로 우리가 계속 사람들하고 만나는 게 정말 좋은 것인가? 에 대해서는 이제 조금 계속 생각을 좀 해봐야 될 필요는 분명히 있는 문제입니다. 그래서 친구가 많은 게 과연 정말 정신 건강에 좋은 것인가, 아니면 그냥 혼자 지내는 것이 이제 정신 건강에 좋은 것인가, 그런 것들에 대해서는 이제 사실 이제 최근에 굉장히 많은 관심을 좀 받고 있고, 또 디지털 기기를 또 많이 사용하게 되면서 사실은 사람들이 실제로 사람을 만나지 않고 온라인에서 사람을 만나는 게 정신건강에 좋지 않을 수도 있다라는 그런 걱정들을 많이 하는데요. 반면에 저는 좀 이런 실제로 만나지 않고 디지털 기기나 아니면은 이제 온라인에서 하는 행동 이외에 다른 행동을 하는 것들도, 온라인에서 이제 사용할 수 있는 다른 장점들을 사용해서 오히려 좀 소셜 인터랙션을 좀 높일 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 왜냐하면 고립된 사람들, 그리고 이제 어떻게 보면은 물리적으로 우리가 연결되지 못하는 사람들도 있을 수 있고, 우리는 디지털이나 여러 가지의 온라인의 발달이 실제로는 지금 살아가고 있는 이렇게 MZ 세대들이나 신세대들만 사용한다고 사실은 생각을 하지만, 실제로는 이제 도서 지역에 있는 사람들이나 실제로 사회랑 조금 많이 떨어져 있는 그런 사람들에게도 도움이 되는 측면들이 분명히 있거든요. 그래서 저는 그런 어떤 온라인상에서의 소통, 그리고 디지털의 발달이 이런 인터랙션을 막는 것보다는 조금 더 기술적으로 사람들의 관계를 더 발달시키고 정신건강을 조금 증진시킬 수 있는 쪽으로 갈 수 있다고 생각을 하고요. 또 이제 사실 디지털이나 이제 온라인에서 제가 또 이제 긍정적으로 이제 보는 그런 면, 그리고 이제 교수님께서 질문해 주신 어떤 정신건강의 증진에 있어서 이런 것들이 이제 우리가 사회에서 어떻게 좀 협력을 할 수 있냐, 그런 부분에 있어서는 예전과 다르게 이제 정신건강에 대해서 우리가 오픈하는 부분들이 많아지고, 미디어에서도 이제 우리가 셀레브리티들도 우울증이라든지 자기가 공황장애를 앓고 있다, 이런 부분들도 많이 좀 오픈을 하고, 그런 게 이제 SNS나 또 디지털 문화를 통해서 많이 좀 쉐어가 되고, 내가 이제 정신과 다녀오고 심리 상담도 받고 이런 게 좀 되게 쿨한 문화로 굉장히 좀 치부가 되면서, 굉장히 요새는 자기가 문제가 있지 않더라도 먼저 이제 병원에 와서 좀 진단도 받고 평가도 받고 그런 부분들이 있거든요. 그런데 이제 저희는 그런 얼리 디텍션이 사실은 이 질병의 예방이라든지 좀 더 이제 안 좋게 진행하는 거에 대해서 더 굉장히 중요한 부분이라고 생각을 하는데, 이제 예전에는 어떤 정신 건강의 문제가 질병으로 생각하고 고쳐야 될 거라고 생각을 했다면, 지금은 그런 문제들이 미리미리 좀 예방을 하고 조기에 이제 잡아내고 이런 부분들이 조금 더 이제 중요하다고 생각을 해서, 이제 급변하는 여러 가지 좀 디지털 시대의 기술의 이제 발달들이 그러한 변화들을 조금 더 빨리 좀 감지를 하고, 그런 게 지금 사회에서 조금 더 도움이 되고, 그리고 이제 일반적인 국민들한테도 이런 정신건강 문제들이 조금 더 이제 알려지는 계기가 될 수 있지 않을까라고 생각합니다.
Thank you. I think, Professor Gu, you might have any comments from sociology perspective on this issue?
Well, I thought probably, thinking about what Michael Tomasello talked about in the morning, what determines the quality of the social relationship depends a lot on things like shared attention and shared intentionality, and to what extent participants are committed, whether they're willing to be properly assigned to their roles, things like that. So all those elements work in a proper way. Cooperation itself might be beneficial for all the participants. Okay? But in other contexts, I think it doesn't really matter whether we talk about online community or offline community. The face-to-face interaction might be, in general, might be influential and beneficial for people who interact with each other. But even though we talk about online community, if we can make sure that participants can have better communication, be committed to some shared goals, and sharing some shared intentionality, things like that, it could be also beneficial to people who join the forum. So if you think about, for example, like internet online communities, there are a lot of online communities where young people get together and get their views shared, political and social economic matters. And if they are committed and they get to know about who they are, and they agree upon some codes, share ethics, respect each other, it might be good for social and mental health of people who join those kinds of internet communities. That's my view on the question.
Thank you very much, and sorry for calling your name without notice. Let's turn back to Professor Shim for her comments on Professor Jo's presentation.
Right. Before that, I agree with what Professor Koo said. So the importance of a shared social goal may be a key for this. And for an online interaction, maybe like we need to first establish the healthy social norms. I mean, there could be a new thing to introduce for this kind of new online world, I think. So that maybe help increase the more healthy social interactions and alleviate the negative problem of with too much of a social interactions and more new kind of social interactions, I think.
I mean, the truth is that we don't know much about what's happening online, whether they create and maintain social norms that might be shared by the participants and who are participating, and then what are the characteristics of the participants. And we tend to have a kind of stigmatization and judgments about who they are. These are the ones that keep producing like negative remarks and derogatory remarks toward others, and that's the place where hatred comes out. That's the perception we have about the people who do not express online, but really sneaking into the online spaces and trying to express their views and opinions. So what is needed, if you think about the future of cooperation, which is really widely happening in online spaces, we need to know more about who they are and what are the preferences for young people who prefer online communication as opposed to offline communication.
Okay, so now this question is for Professor Jo, who nicely introduced borderless collaborations at many levels in clinical research. So I'm not an expert for clinical research, but I believe that one of the important efforts to encourage collaborations is open science practice. So we already live in the era of open science, and it is mainstream in many scientific disciplines already. So there have been major attempts to establish large-scale data sets and research protocols and share them publicly. So I'll just allow myself to go on a little bit about what I do and take some example from our own case. So we, the researchers at the IBIS Center for Neuroscience Imaging Research, so are trying to create a large-scale human neuroimaging data set, so which can be used to examine human brain and cognitive functions at a macroscopic level. And we plan to make these data sets and data analysis tool available publicly later. So our idea is to provide some data sets as the access to some of the really high-tech scanner is limited to only a few places in the world. So we believe that our data set can contribute to some collective efforts for new scientific discovery, which may not be easily achievable only by efforts by individual scientists. So first, I wonder how these open science efforts are going in clinical research, and what your view on this. And the second point about that is that there's also the dark side or difficulty of open science. Open science is a great ideal, but we can, when we implement it, there may be some problems, obstacles, and some unintended side effects. So we know that there are costs for producing the data, and make this open science work, we need institutional support. And also, some people point out open practices may not be so rewarding for early career researchers. So, but however, I think that when this practice is embedded in education, you mentioned early on, it can be beneficial to the field in the long run. So these conditions may also be shared by clinical research, or their circumstances may be quite different from basic science fields. So what do you think the biggest hurdles for these open science efforts in clinical research? And can you share your thoughts on how we can possibly overcome if there is a difficulty?
So thank you for the question. So it's very similar to what you're experiencing as well. So in clinical research, so let's say maybe 20 years ago when I did my PhD, it was really hard for PhD students to find the data set. So it was one of our mission is make your own data. But nowadays, if you have a good research question, there is many data you can actually get. So maybe UK Biobank, even for a Korean genomic project, or many different data are available. So I would say it's a more open and transparent. But in terms of a clinical research, one of the requirement is transparency and reliability and standardization. Because you really need, we always says it's evidence-based medicine. Then what we are really lacking is, as we provide, is research method. So it's easy to get the data, but people are really afraid of if people use it in a wrong way, you can get the wrong result. So some people are really hesitating to share the resources. But some like a big institution like UK or US NIH or UK NHIS, they really eager to sharing the data and put the platform for the open science because they believe this will help them to really accelerating the finding. But I think still for like really helping this open science culture and effort, we really need to more expert in clinical research method. That's what really we are heading for. And also at the same time, as I mentioned at the very last of my slide, research methods are changing rapidly. So it gets more complicated and more advanced. But people were still live in, like, I would say 1990s. So even we actually had a meeting with faculty at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health a few weeks ago, and we were discussing about this seriously. Even at Hopkins, we feel like we teach the wrong, like old things, but we really need to find better, like improving the curriculum and teaching the advanced method. I mean, that's the way we can actually booster this open science effort. So last thing, as you mentioned, the more opportunity for juniors or more opportunity for students, that would be also helpful for booster up this open science. And because they need more support, but as you can imagine, like junior faculty or students, they are the one who need more support, but they are the who got less likely to get the support. So I think that's one of the things we need to not only in Korea but worldwide, we need to put the more effort on it.
Now, afternoon session is over, and let me turn the mic over to Professor Koo, who organized the whole morning and afternoon session for final concluding remarks.
I really wanted to thank you, everybody, for the heated debate. It's been a long day from the morning to the last session of this conference. And we began with our fundamental discussion about basic conditions of human animals compared to chimpanzees and other great apes. And then we also had a chance to go back to the 10,000 years ago when agricultural evolution occurred and the ways in which history and culture and civilization began to shape and reshape our human basic motives for cooperation, being altruistic. And then in the afternoon, it was a little bit hard to observe, but we had an opportunity to think about the current states of economic cooperation in the global economy, and then ending with our discussion about what's happening in the medical field and the cooperation among epistemologists, and what are the benefits of being cooperative. And it really brought up a larger issue about the relationship between being cooperative or altruistic and emotional and social well-being. So what a diversity. Not only the contents themselves, but also the participants who joined this event that ranges from sociology, economics, and psychology, psychiatry, and epidemiology, law and philosophy, and chemical engineering and medical engineering. So many subjects and backgrounds. I think this is what really characterizes the 성균관 International Conference in terms of diversity. And this is not something that can be achieved by other institutions. So in terms of bringing together so many different scholars and capable researchers and rising stars with so many different backgrounds. So that being said, I feel like I need to conclude the chapter of the conference. I'm looking forward to see the next event next year with new agenda for the third 성균관 International Conference. I hope we can get together and see next year. Thank you so much.